crying his eyes out as the battle rages around him, and Clara spots the kid just as a hooded mage takes aim from across the square, launching a massive fireball directly at the defenseless boy. Without a second thought, she dashes forward at incredible speed, throwing herself in front of the child to shield him with her own body. Her teammate screams, watching in horror as the spell is about to hit, which results in a massive explosion right where they were standing. Sven and the others can only stare at the fiery aftermath, fearing the worst, and he is just completely stunned, muttering "no way" under his breath. But as the smoke begins to clear, a blue barrier reveals they are both perfectly safe, with Clara holding the crying kid, looking a bit shocked but totally unharmed. This gets a very relieved, if awkward, smile from her two squadmates, but then they realize it is not just her. Individual barriers are popping up around every civilian. This people inside are completely baffled as attacks bounce right off them, and Sven looks around in disbelief, seeing that literally everyone has a personal shield, his mind immediately jumping to the only person who could pull this off. Of course it is Blake, casually casting a protection spell on every single citizen in the area. Clara's partner gets pissed and unleashes her own magic on the attackers, absolutely blasting one of the hooded mages for daring to target her friend. Sven and the others rush over to check on Clara, who is holding the kid she saved, and she just explains that Blake's barrier popped up in time to protect her. This has Sven wondering how he could possibly cast it from so far away, but her partner points out it is not just them. Barriers are appearing on everyone. All around the city, civilians are looking at their hands in shock, now totally invincible, leading the squad to realize Blake might have just shielded every single person in the capital. Clara just smiles, thinking to herself that Blake is even more amazing than she imagined. While elsewhere, Lancelot recognizes Blake's handiwork and tells his men to use the protection. One of his knights reports that the rebel forces are overwhelming them and the king is in danger. And when Lancelot asks for backup from the magic corps, he is told there is no one left. He is caught in a bind, knowing he cannot abandon the civilians, but the castle is minutes away. Gritting his teeth as he is forced to make a choice between the people and the king, he decides to trust the Night Corps with the castle, even though his men know they will be outnumbered, declaring that it is fine because Blake will provide the support they need. His subordinate immediately understands the order and prepares for battle. Realizing that Lancelot's trust in Blake must be absolute to make a call like this, with his decision made, Lancelot powers up his own magic, putting all his faith in our boy. As the battle for the capital rages on in the streets below the castle, Lancelot's knight rallies the troops, screaming for them to defend the castle from the invaders, but one of the hooded mages just laughs maniacally while charging up a huge fire spell, which he launches right at the castle gate. After their attack, the mages try to make a run for it, taunting the knights as they go, only to slam face first into an invisible barrier that pops up out of nowhere. They are completely stunned, immediately realizing this must be Blake's handiwork, and see that he has sealed off the entire castle entrance with a perfect shield. Before they can even react, one of the mages gets taken out by a swift attack, revealing Lancelot's subordinate cutting through their ranks like a total badass. He gives them a stone-cold glare, not even breaking a sweat, then looks up with a grin, thanking Blake for the backup. Speaking of our boy, he is just floating there, calmly managing all these barriers across the city, when he suddenly senses a massive attack coming his way, a huge volley of combined magic from the enemy's heavy hitters. Blake just raises his hands, looking completely unimpressed by the whole display, effortlessly catching the entire blast with a single hand. He casually dissipates the attack like it is nothing more than a puff of smoke, but a new threat emerges from the chaos, a monstrous hand reaching right for him. Without even flinching, Blake grabs the massive hand with his own, stopping the monster's momentum dead in its tracks. With a single flex of his hand, Blake completely shatters the monstrous arm into dust, and stands there in the aftermath, totally unfazed by the whole ordeal. This finally draws out the rebellion's leader, who seems surprised Blake is unharmed, revealing a smug, blonde-haired nobleman flanked by his hooded goons. Blake immediately recognizes him as Gunther, asking if he is behind this whole rebellion, which causes Gunther to absolutely lose his mind, screaming about his noble status, and just goes full-on rage mode, promising to end him right there. Our boy just sighs, completely unimpressed by the childish tantrum, which seems to make Gunther realize he has lost his cool, so he straightens his collar and tries to act all dignified again. Blake then asks why he is not in prison, to which Gunther boasts about his supporters, and the idea of this guy having supporters seems to genuinely confuse Blake for a second. Gunther cuts him off, saying there is no need to talk anymore, because he is about to power up and finish this right now. Blake, ever the patient one, just calmly asks him for his motive. And the simple question seems to trigger Gunther all over again. He starts screaming that it is all Blake's fault, pointing an accusatory finger, ranting about how he was demoted and sent to the borderlands because of him. But the real kicker is when he whines that Blake took his beloved Alice, blaming our boy for getting in his way and ruining all his plans. Gunther continues his tantrum, screaming that everything is Blake's fault. And Blake is just standing there, completely unfazed by the accusation. He thinks to himself that this just sounds like karma catching up to the guy, which just makes Gunther look even more unhinged. Blake calmly points out that if Gunther had just lived a decent life, none of this would have happened, and this rational take seems to break what is left of Gunther's sanity. Our boy then adds that Alice herself told him Gunther was never her lover, basically calling out his entire delusion on the spot. He tells the guy it is better to stop blaming others for his own failures, and that is the final straw, sending Gunther into a full-blown homicidal rage. He starts powering up, convinced that Blake cannot possibly maintain barriers on the whole capital, especially not while fighting him and his squad of supposedly seasoned mages. Gunther looks absolutely ecstatic, believing he is finally about to get his revenge. So he and his goons all start casting their spells at once. They launch a huge combined magical blast straight at our boy, with Gunther still cackling, absolutely sure this is the finishing blow. As his entire squad pours all their power into the attack, this beam of destructive energy barrels towards its target, only for Blake to casually put up one hand and stop it dead in its tracks. This just makes Gunther scream for his mages to pour even more magic into the attack. This mages continue to pour every ounce of power into their combined spell, with Gunther screaming like a madman for them to finally take Blake down. Their attack is a massive, swirling vortex of different magical elements, basically a rainbow-colored death beam aimed right at our boy. Yet Blake is still just standing there, holding it all back with one hand. He finally decides he has had enough of this nonsense and prepares a counter, casually forming a small sphere of his own blue energy. With a simple push, his little energy ball completely shatters their ultimate attack, leaving him standing there as their combined spell just crumbles into dust. He looks so unbelievably bored by the whole thing, it is almost insulting. This, of course, sends Gunther into another fit of rage, screaming for a second volley, and his mages immediately launch a barrage of spells from all directions. Blake just effortlessly weaves through the incoming attacks like he is taking a stroll, landing gracefully as a spell explodes right where he was a moment before. His attackers are stunned that he dodged it, but Gunther just orders them to keep firing. They resort to flooding the entire area with a massive wave of fire, which Blake simply leaps over without even breaking a sweat. Gunther calls him a fool, screaming that there is nowhere left for him to run, completely ignoring the fact that Blake is just floating above the flames, totally fine. Our boy then starts charging up his own spell, clearly ready to end this little tantrum. Blake gathers his energy into a sharp, crystalline attack ready to shut this down, plunging it straight into the sea of fire that Gunther's mages created, which completely extinguishes the flames in a massive blast as he lands gracefully. Standing there without a scratch, he looks totally unfazed by their pathetic efforts, but Gunther just smirks, thinking this is all Blake's got. He is convinced that maintaining the citywide barriers is draining all of our boy's power, and starts ranting that Blake will die because he is trying to protect those worthless citizens. A classic villain monologue right before the beatdown. Blake just calmly tells him he is wrong, saying it is asterisk because of everyone that he can fight. This absolute hero moment just makes Gunther grind his teeth in pure rage, screaming at Blake and calling him a self-righteous hypocrite. His mages launch another barrage of fireballs, trying to overwhelm him, leaving Gunther in disbelief when Blake dodges it yet again. Our boy just leaps through the embers, completely untouched by the attack, then blitzes forward with glowing eyes, clearly done playing games. He unleashes a wave of his own magic that sends the hooded mages flying, leaving Gunther absolutely stunned as his backup gets wiped out. Before he can even react, shadowy tendrils erupt from the ground, ensnaring him and his goons, and the guy is just frozen in terror, having no idea what is happening. It is revealed that Blake is standing on a floating platform using a mobile barrier technique to trap them all. Blake starts explaining that barrier techniques come in many different flavors, like the offensive kind he has been using, and of course the defensive ones everyone knows about. But as he gathers his energy, he reveals another type, a healing barrier technique, which is apparently a thing now. This completely breaks Gunther, who starts screaming about how OP that is, ranting that barriers are only for defense and only holy magic can heal, so he just cannot comprehend how our boy is doing this. Blake just gives him a thoughtful look like he is actually pondering the question, then casually suggests it is because he trained hard, which is the ultimate troll answer. Gunther absolutely loses it and orders his goons to attack again, but Blake is already on the move, launching his own offensive barrier, and just blitzes through the entire squad in a single pass. Gunther can only watch in pure unadulterated terror, as Blake stands over the defeated mages with his eyes glowing. He coldly tells Gunther that he is the only one left, then teleports right behind him in a flash of blue light, calmly asking the guy if he is ready to surrender yet. Instead of answering, Gunther just starts laughing like a total psycho, revealing a sinister-looking purple stone he calls his trump card. Gunther, in a move of pure desperation, pops the purple stone right into his mouth, and just swallows the thing whole because that is a totally normal thing to do. This causes him to erupt in a torrent of dark, crackling energy as he powers up, while Blake just watches, looking completely unimpressed by the villain transformation trope. Dark veins start spreading across Gunther's face as his eyes go completely black, followed by a super creepy grin that shows off his newly sharpened teeth. Now fully transformed, he starts ranting about how he has become invincible, and then makes it 1,000 times worse by saying he was saving this for Alice. He is absolutely convinced that with this power, even the actual hero would have to bow to him, but Blake just calmly tells him that is not going to happen. This simple denial sends Gunther into another rage as he gathers a massive ball of dark energy, screaming at Blake while launching his ultimate attack straight at him. This giant death ball hurtles down, but Blake just casually throws up a barrier to block it, then starts redirecting the entire attack with a single hand gesture. He sends the whole thing flying off into the distance where it explodes harmlessly. which just makes Gunther scream even louder about Blake acting like a guardian. So he launches the exact same massive attack all over again, expecting a different result, and once again it barrels down towards Blake's waiting barrier. Our boy effortlessly redirects the blast a second time, looking bored out of his mind, sending it to detonate safely away from the city once more. Blake finally decides to go on the offensive, cutting through the lingering flames, but Gunther just screams for him to die while launching another volley of dark magic. Our boy effortlessly dodges the attacks, weaving through the purple energy like it is nothing, which just makes Gunther laugh maniacally, taunting that Blake's cool demeanor is gone. He gathers his dark power for what he is sure will be the finishing blow, unleashing a massive swirling vortex straight at our hero. This attack lands with a huge explosion, seemingly engulfing Blake completely, but when the smoke clears, he is just standing in a barrier with a few minor scrapes. Gunther is absolutely livid, screaming that Blake is on death's door and his barriers are useless, ordering his last two mages to combine their attacks for one final push. His victory rant is cut short when he sees something that leaves him completely shocked, because a different explosion suddenly erupts nearby. It is Blake's students who have arrived on the scene to provide backup, reporting that they have defeated the other rebels around the city. They yell for him to stop holding back and fight with everything he has got, which makes Gunther rage even harder, promising to take them all down. Hearing his students threatened is the last straw for Blake, whose eyes begin to glow intensely. And for the first time, Gunther looks genuinely terrified by the look on his face. Suddenly, a massive wave of blue energy spreads out from Blake, covering the entire capital, as his students look on in awe at the sheer scale of his power. The students are bathed in his overwhelming blue aura, totally shocked by this display. As Blake's power erupts into a massive pillar of pure energy, this swirling vortex of magic shows the true scale of what he was holding back, and the kids can barely stand, completely blown away by the raw power their teacher possesses. One of them just clasps her hands in praise for him to win, calling him old man in a moment of pure faith. Blake himself just stands there, eyes glowing, finally done with all the nonsense. But Gunther, of course, starts screaming that it is too late for Blake to get serious now. He launches another massive vortex of dark magic, still ranting that he is unbeatable, and the attack lands with a huge explosion that covers the entire area. With a psychotic grin, Gunther asks if our boy is finally down for the count, but a single footstep is heard as Blake walks right out of the smoke, emerging without a single scratch on him and looking as calm as ever. This completely breaks Gunther, who just cannot believe Blake survived a direct hit, so he powers up again, vowing to just keep attacking until something finally works. Another blast of dark magic flies towards Blake, who does not even flinch, which makes Gunther completely lose it, screaming about how his top-tier magic is being blocked. In response, Blake just calmly raises a single finger, gathering a bit of his energy, and suddenly traps Gunther inside a hexagonal prison of solid blue magic. This guy immediately starts panicking, screaming for Blake to let him out of the trap, but instead the barrier begins to violently constrict, crushing him with pure magical force. This barrier constricts with overwhelming force, completely crushing Gunther's last bit of resistance, leaving him collapsed on the ground, muttering about how impossibly versatile Blake's magic is, and having a full-on existential meltdown about what barriers are even supposed to be. Blake just calmly tells him that barriers are for protecting everyone, dropping the ultimate hero line. With the dark power fading from his body, Gunther can only call the whole situation a complete mess, before he finally passes out totally and utterly defeated. As the chaos subsides, a sense of peace finally returns to the capital, and Blake hears his students calling out to him from the street below. They are all waving and cheering, absolutely thrilled that their teacher pulled through, with Clara leading the charge as they all rush over to him, immediately tackling him in a huge hug to celebrate his victory. Our boy is a little surprised but gives her a warm smile, thanking her for the support, which leaves the other two students completely stunned by her forwardness. She quickly lets go, apologizing for getting carried away because she was just so relieved he was okay. Just then, a red-haired swordsman arrives on the scene, asking if Blake is all right, and he is holding a creepy-looking stone totem, identifying it as the source of the miasma. He explains it is a cursed tool that activates with the user's magic, making everyone wonder why Gunther had it, which reminds Blake that Gunther had boasted about having a powerful backer. This swordsman starts connecting the dots between this attack and the Monster Village incident, questioning if all these abnormal events are a coincidence or part of a much bigger conspiracy. This red-haired swordsman confirms that thanks to Blake, the capital is finally safe, and he extends a hand in gratitude, giving our boy all the credit for the win. Blake accepts the handshake, officially earning the respect of the hero's party. A few weeks later, the king makes a royal decree to honor Blake for his service, appointing him to the brand-new position of court barrier mage. This other nobles are a bit shocked by this unprecedented move, but have to admit he earned it. While his students are in the crowd, absolutely losing their minds with excitement for him, even the hero's party is giving him a round of applause for the promotion. But Blake just stands there with the royal court, completely bewildered by how this all happened. His butler is equally stunned to find himself with an official position too. And as they are led through the palace, Blake has no idea where they are going, until he is pushed out onto a balcony to face a massive cheering crowd for his official debut. He is completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of people who came to see him, so one of the hero's party members tells him to just go on and wave to his new fans. our boy gives a super awkward little wave, clearly not used to all this attention, which makes the crowd erupt in cheers, thanking him for saving their city. After the ceremony, Blake just collapses onto a couch, totally drained from the whole ordeal. He cannot believe he is not only a court magician but also has his own fancy room now, reflecting on how everyone from his students to the hero's party congratulated him. For the first time, he thinks that maybe he can have some confidence in his useless barrier techniques. He is left wondering what he is supposed to do with all this newfound fame and responsibility. Thinking about how barrier mages are treated as incompetent and must feel so frustrated, which gives him an idea to spread the word that barriers are a power that protects people. He decides to gather and train other barrier mages to show everyone what they can do, getting fired up with the goal of protecting people all over the world. This is the start of the story of how one barrier mage will change everything. But at the same time, a girl clutches a glowing curse mark on her chest, calling out for help. She cries in agony, begging for Blake to save her as a new arc begins in the story.
Please subscribe for more.